VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morris, and good to have you with us on Crosstalk today. And I think many of us have, over the past week, been literally shocked at the things that have happened in our country. And as we have heard the pundits, the experts, the law enforcement people, the government, the feedback from the FBI, the Homeland Security, the White House, and all of the mixed messages, I'll have to say this, and I'm sure you'll agree, our heads are spinning with the variety of information that's out there. And as we look at some of the interesting things, the big question, of course, with the Tsarnaev brothers, are they going to be tried as citizens or enemy combatants? And, of course, you hear the people on the networks, the news networks, raising that question. And, of course, the legal minds saying, well, if they're tried as an enemy combatant, would it be a tribunal or would it be a courtroom experience? Would it be properly handled or would it not be? Then, of course, comes the question, could the living brother who still survives to face the court, could he be stripped of his citizenship, and would that then allow them to try him as an enemy combatant? Because, you see, he's a citizen of the United States. And so the big debate there is, how will a citizen of the United States, and the question, does he, in essence, waive his citizenship when he becomes an anarchist to destroy or bring harm against his own country? Unanswered questions. The question, should intelligence gathering take precedence over the Miranda rights? And, of course, many of us are aware of the fact if you're arrested, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be held against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney and all of these types of things with the Miranda rights. And, of course, the question, does this act of terrorism against our country and against our citizens, does it constitute requiring the Miranda rights, or does it waive that right? And, of course, we hear the battle going on, the eager public defenders wanting to defend this individual as well. The blurry facts that swirl through our minds continue. The issue of whether or not there are sleeper cells that are hanging around that are unknown at this point. Whether or not these sleeper cells are containing more brothers. I'm talking about the Brotherhood of Islam, of course. And because of the commitment of jihad, which is global domination, and this is a known fact, this is not some attitude from a conservative right-wing fundamentalist. This is part of the beliefs of Islam. World domination. That's what it calls for. And so we see the big question, are there any evidence to tell us whether or not sleeper cells were involved as well? Now, the former Attorney General under President Bush has made this statement that he believes it was jihad, literally holy war from Islam. And the question, of course, we've heard all kinds of recitations regarding the two brothers. How much was known about these two brothers? Obviously, they were able, within a short period of time, to identify the terrorists with the video cameras that lurk all over our society, and they were able to identify them, even with the burden of the explosives and where they put them down. But what is truly known? More stuff keeps coming forward even as we speak. The wife, of course, of the older brother now, coming forward and claiming that she knew nothing of the plans of bombing, yet she does admit she was a convert to Islam. The younger brother Was it because he was a victim of the older brother's influence? Or was he deeply entrenched in the same philosophy? Now, there are those that claim that he was set up, that he was ultimately set up to do this job. Now, the question continues, of course. We talk about, is public safe? Is our public safe today? Now, it wasn't too many hours after this occurrence happened that there were deep concerns in Canada. I'm looking at the Associated Press from Toronto. 2 men were arrested and charged with plotting a terrorist attack against a Canadian passenger train with support from al-Qaeda elements in Iran, police said it Monday. The case bolstered allegations by some governments and experts of a relationship of convenience between the Iranian and the Sunni Arab terrorist network. And on this issue goes. As the 2 were arrested, they had direction and guidance from al-Qaeda, members of Iran, though there was no reason to think that the planned attacks were state-sponsored. Now, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Commissioner said that the men did not get financial support from al-Qaeda, but declined to provide more details. Now, in some things like this, the big question comes up, follow the money trail. And where do these bombs and explosives and sophisticated detonating equipment come from if there isn't outside help? But this is the first known al-Qaeda planned attack that Canada has experienced. And they claim there's no connections to last week's bombing at Boston. Well, is it no direct connections, or is there a philosophic connection that bridges all of this? The arrests in Montreal and Toronto raise questions about Iran's murky relationships with the terrorist network. A CIA veteran who is now at Brookings Institute senior fellow said that al-Qaeda had a clandestine presence in Iran since at least 2001, and neither the terrorist group nor Tehran speak openly about it. The Iran regime kept some of the elements under house arrest. He said in an email to the Associated Press, some probably operate covertly. Some members often transit Iran, traveling between hideouts in Pakistan and Iraq. Now, folks, this is just a picture of what's happening outside of Boston, linking together. Now, let me ask this. As we've seen from 9/11, I'm talking about 2001, to the present, have we seen decrease in violence and these attacks? Or have we seen an increase? I talk about ships pulling up next to some of our fleet and blowing a hole in the side of one of our naval vessels, killing some people, injuring people. And on the list goes with more violence. We think of what Israel's going through with over 1,500 missile attacks against innocent people who are not waging war. And are we saying that this is all happening because it was domestic violence and had nothing to do with enemy combatants? Well, something came forth here just in this past weekend, and I'm not a fan nor even a follower of Bill Maher, a nighttime talk show host, apparently. But he made a statement that really kind of shook everybody when he made reference to the type of violence we're seeing has been coming from the identifiable Islamic community. So many people are using the words radicalized Islam. If you go to the doctrines of what their book teaches, they teach jihad. They teach violence. So if it's radicalized, I mean, if these are good Muslims, they're going to believe the book. If they're backslidden Muslims, they won't. If they're phonies, or as someone might call hypocrites, they'll be silent until the demand for militant response is required. This is the story that's come out of the Islamic community. Now, the big question, of course, talking about the FBI and the fact that they were warned ahead of time about the older brother, warned that there was a problem. And this is something which we're going to be talking about here this afternoon, and giving you a chance to call in as well. But the brothers were being portrayed as militant Muslim jihadists. The older brother, Tamerlan, was named after a great Islamic warrior. Their mother, though she insists her children were innocent, has a criminal record as a shoplifter. They come from a known breeding ground for Islamic extremists. I'm not sure whether the word extremist applies, but they put it in here. The older brother was he had domestic violence charges on his record, yet the system failed to deport him. Both the brothers had very questionable social networking profiles and activity, and surprisingly enough, so that their files were left up for all to see. As of the last time checked, these accounts had still not been disabled, and the FBI was warned about the older brother and interviewed him, but concluded that he was no threat, and the warning came from a foreign government. And of course, the big question is, did the FBI botch the investigation dealing with the Boston bombing? Or does it get hidden or lost in bureaucratic smoke and mirrors? These are all questions that we have to face. And today we're going to open our lines in a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit about the director of the FBI and the fact that Robert Mueller became the director of the FBI just 7 days before the tragedy of 9/11 in 2001. And the question is, if there has been a phasing out of the FBI and allowing the Department of Homeland Security to take a greater role and the FBI reduced role, is it any wonder that they didn't follow through on the warning that came from a foreign country? We're going to open our phone lines today early because I think it would be great for you to call in and share your thoughts. We've heard what the news people say, but we'd like to find out what the citizens say as well, your thoughts on this. So we're going to open our phone lines, 800-733-9829. If you'd like to come online early, we'll be glad to entertain your thoughts. Keep your calls brief and to the point, and we'll give you a chance to share your thoughts today on Crosstalk. The phone number again, 800-733-9829, as we talk about what's going on, your impressions, and where do you think this thing's going, and what hope we have for America. We'll be right back.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and geologist at the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, how could humans be fossilized?
Chris, most of the fossils are due to the Great Flood of Noah's day. They were buried in waterborne sediments, having now hardened into sedimentary rock. Remember, fossilization is a rare event, especially of humans. They would have run to higher ground to escape the rising floodwaters or clung to rafts or floating logs. The primary mechanism for deposition of strata was rapidly moving mud with abrasive forces which would have ground the bodies to powder. Just think of the many thousands of humans who died in the tsunami of 2004, whose bodies were never found. We simply wouldn't expect to find human bodies from before the flood. The flood's primary purpose was to wipe out the sinful civilization in the days of Noah, and it did a good job. That's the flood we find described back in Genesis.
This is Chris O'Brien. Thanks for tuning in.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, as our phone lines are literally jammed at this moment, and we'll be getting to you shortly on the lines. But a few more items I'd like to touch base on here. Of course, the ACLU has to get into the picture. The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. Okay, that's what they are calling for here. Calling for the Obama administration to read the suspect in Boston Marathon his legal rights. Now, your response to that, I'm sure, will be interesting. But the Department of Justice indicated Friday that the administration would not read 19-year-old Zohar Zarnev his Miranda rights, citing a public safety exception. But Anthony Romero, the ACLU's executive director, said Saturday that the immediate threat is over and that Zarnev and the ethnic Chechen who had become a naturalized citizen last year should now be treated like any other suspected criminal. Every criminal defendant is entitled to be read Miranda rights, Romero said in a statement. The public safety exception should be read narrowly. It applies only when there is a continued threat to public safety and is not an open-ended exception to the Miranda rule. So, how do you handle this when it comes to enemy combatants seeking to destroy our country? By their very doctrine, by their very creed, by their very statement, Islam has declared that they are seeking world domination and that the only God that people will be able to worship is Allah, and that those who do not worship him are infidels and, according to the laws of Islam, should be killed or, in the least amount, have to pay a tremendous tax simply for existence. And Sharia, which is Islamic law, should prevail around this country. Now, in my book, now this is my personal opinion, this appears to be world domination and throwing our Constitution in the trash can and coming up with a whole new Constitution. One that says if you steal, you take a sword and chop your wrists off, chop your hands off. If someone is guilty of adultery, they are stoned to death or beheaded. That's an interesting law, isn't it? Is that the way that this country rules, even with the scarlet sin? Well, when we're talking about the suspects planning 2 bombs that detonated Monday near the finish line of the Boston Marathon, killing 3 people and injuring more than 170, and now the number has climbed even to others who have shrapnel problems. Tamerlan, the older brother, was killed in the shootout with the police. And now Zohar is remaining, has been read his Miranda rights, and is lawyered up, ready to go. Your thoughts as we go to the phones, because America has the right to speak, and Crosstalk is here for you. And we're going to go right now to Sarah in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. And Sarah, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you, Vic.
Mm-hmm.
From listening to Usama Dekta and Stickleback on terror and what you just said now, you put it all in a nutshell for us. We are in constant danger. Anyone who doesn't believe that has really got their head in the sand. I'm sorry. The lone wolves are everywhere. They're just looking for their reward for paradise in heaven. So why shouldn't they want to go out on their own and have their names all over our TVs and all over the world, and have the jihadists yelling and cheering, yay, scream, yay, happy, happy, because they're killing the infidels.
And Sarah, as I see what's happened in our culture, it wasn't too many days ago that there was an extreme outrage expressed where our government had cited a list of dangerous groups, and the number one group was evangelical Christians.
Well, wasn't that stated in the Bible? Is that in the end time?
That we'd be hated for Christ's sake.
Yes, Vic.
Much to pray about, Sarah. Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Mitchell, South Dakota, and we're going to talk with Aaron standing by. And Aaron, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Vic. I just want to say something. You talked about, which I totally agree with completely, and usually do agree with most things I hear from your station. Actually, pretty much just about all of them, yes, sir. And I've never found a lie from your mouth, sir. And I believe in Jesus Christ as my Savior, and I believe that Jesus, the Father, raised him from the dead. And I just want to say that, you mentioned how they went and wage war on everyone, and yet they're also taught to lie. The ones that aren't doing it, they're also, like you said, their religion is to wage wrong war, and they also are taught to lie and to try to fit in until they get a chance. And that's all I had to say.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Aaron, from Mitchell, South Dakota. Bill Maher kind of rang the bell with the comments, and I'll paraphrase them to the best I can. He made reference, and please, by my mentioning his name, I'm not extolling him on any pedestal, but he made the statement that indicated that this violence is coming undeniably from the Islamic community. Now, you can use the word extremists or radicalizing or all these special little words that you tuck into the vocabulary, but the point is that it is coming from the Islamic community. Now, there was a parallel mentioned on the news that, well, just like the mafia comes from the Italian community. And I'm not sure what other we talk about some of the drug cartels that come from from Mexico, and that the Hispanic community. We don't brand everybody in the Hispanic community as being drug abusers and drug cartel. No, but it is happening from that community, and it comes from a certain belief system. And as we're looking at Islam today, if world domination is the goal, if jihad, this is war against the culture, against the infidels, the great Satan, if you please, and they're encouraged to do acts of violence that kill people. And it's obvious they don't care who they kill, as long as they kill somebody. And obviously, unless you're a declared Muslim, you are an infidel. Charlie in Milwaukee, you're on the air. Hello, Charlie.
Yes, this is Charlie. Thank you for taking my call. I'm on a cell phone, so please forgive me. But I was in the Marine Corps, and I fought against terrorists. I was trained in counterterrorism. And yes, you're quite correct in your analysis that there's a lot of sleeper cells in this country just waiting to go off at the right time and beck and call. Mark Furman, who's also a Marine and a detective, he was on Fox News the other day, and I never saw him lose his temper except when he was talking with this representative from the Obama administration, and he demanded to know, where's the police work? If the FBI agent interviewed this guy, this terrorist, this bomber, who are these people? Who are the detectives? What did they find out? Did they talk to other police agencies? In fact, no information was passed. So the FBI agent who actually interviewed this man knows what happened, is strangely silent. And I don't know if your listeners are aware, but I have some friends that are very high in the intelligence area in the military, and our CIA, our FBI, our government is going out of its way to recruit Muslims into the FBI, into the CIA. They're in the highest areas of intelligence. Do you think it's possible they could look the other way? Thank you, sir. I'll just hang up and listen.
Thank you, Charlie. And if you doubt what Charlie was saying, if you heard the testimony of the head of the CIA, which extols the benefits and virtues of Islam. I've seen it. Usama Dakdok showed it at a recent rally, which will shock you as this man extols the virtues of Islam. Yeah, he's the head of the CIA. Figure that one out. Well, the FBI is going to have to force to admit to botching the investigation on the Boston bombing. Let's face it. They had a warning. A foreign government had reason to warn them to check into this guy, a man who had gone for 6 months to Russia and comes back apparently with an agenda. I'm not the jury, I'm not the court. But it certainly is reasonable that it would raise questions in the minds, in the hearts of tax-paying, country-loving citizens like you and me. Let's go to Fred in Milwaukee. And Fred, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know that I called CBN and left a message with Eric Stakelbeck and Pat Robertson asking why they don't have Usama Dakdock on their shows as a credible witness and expert. And seems like Fox and CNN, these other stations, put on watered-down credible witnesses, so they keep asking why, and they say, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't know. But the thing is, they got to read the Quran, and nobody's giving them this message, even though Usama Dakdock did an excellent job, and it should be proclaimed from the housetops about these people. And they should leave America. They don't want America to live here to join us. They want us to join them, and that's the end of the story. And we don't have to, we don't want to, and they should go home.
Fred, the situation that every congressman, every senator, all of our national leaders have received a copy of Usama Dakdock's translated Quran. And it is plain English. It's not sugared up. It is just exactly what the words mean. And all of these men have this in their hands, and the question is, do they regard it? Have they read it? Are they looking at what Islam really is? Thank you, Fred, for your call. We got open lines right now, 800-733-9829. And some of our international callers, you're welcome to call as well. Use your speed dialer, 800-733-9829. And John in Hillsborough, you're on the air.
Hello, Vic.
Yes.
This is John from Hillsborough.
Yes.
I have a couple of things. First of all, I think all of us know that Muslims have been murdering Christians and Jews as long as there have been Muslims. They're doing it as much now, well, maybe not as much now as ever. But
well, why not? Because they're infidels and their religion tells them to.
That's right. The second point I have is that this suspect number 2 that's in the hospital, he became a citizen about a year ago, didn't he?
That's right.
Now, if he was plotting terrorist attacks when he gave his oath of allegiance to the United States to become a citizen, it would seem to me that his citizenship is invalid.
Very interesting.
There shouldn't be any question about it.
Well, I appreciate
whether
that.
he has the rights of a citizen or not.
John, thank you very much for coming up against a hard break, and your thoughts certainly stimulate our thoughts today. Thank you, John from Hillsborough. We're going to take a break and be back here shortly. Invite a friend to listen to Crosstalk each day, if you would. Also, let your manager know if you appreciate Crosstalk as it comes your way, because they are the ones that provide the airtime for this radio program. They are the ones that feel it's important enough that you be aware of what's happening. So thank them. If you appreciate Crosstalk, we appreciate your kind words, but they are the ones that make it available to you. Thanks. We'll be right back.
Have you ever had someone attempt to talk to you about the Watchtower Society or the Book of Mormon? Or perhaps a friend has told you they've started yoga and invite you to participate. You know you heard something about these religions and teachings, but never had the material in your hand to give a biblical response to their teachings. Well, now you can. 2 world-renowned researchers, Dr. Ron Carlson and Ed Decker, have teamed up to write Fast Facts on False Teachings, an easy-to-use resource guide that gives you quick, clear facts about several cults and false teachings. You'll find chapters on atheism, Freemasonry, Hinduism and yoga, Islam, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, and much more. Fast Facts on False Teachings is available for a donation of $16 or more by writing VCY America at 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53208. To make your donation by phone, call 1-800-729-9829. That's 1-800-729-9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. Well, the Attorney General who served in the Bush campaign, the Bush administration, the Boston Marathon bombings were unmistakably a jihadist act, said the former U.S. Attorney General, Michael Murkowski. But the Obama administration has disbanded the CIA interrogation group charged with investigating these plots, leaving America more vulnerable than ever to future threats. This is coming from Newsmax. Those who feel that the only threat from the brothers Tamerlan and Zohar has been eliminated now that one of them is dead and the other is in custody for the rest of his life can rest easy. Well, Mukasey writes in an op-ed piece published in the Wall Street Journal Sunday that if your concern is over the larger threat that in who the Tsarnaev brothers were and are, what they did and what they represent, then worry a lot. One big worry, Mukasey notes, is how the high-value interrogation group will even do its job. The group was formed by the FBI after the so-called underwear bomber was Mirandized in 2009, and President Barack Obama had disbanded the CIA interrogation group that might have run the interrogation of the bomber. The two programs aren't even remotely similar in their tactics and goals, suggests Mukasey, who served in the Bush administration from 2007 to 2009. Well, the issue of whether or not the FBI is even handling the case, or is it the Homeland Security people? Did they botch it, or was it taken out of their hands? Now, Reuters says the Republican lawmakers questioned Sunday whether the FBI had fumbled the case of one of the two Boston Marathon bomber suspects, saying it was one of a series in which someone in the agency had investigated and it had gone on to participate in terrorist attacks. Now, the House of Representatives Homeland Security Committee said that they wrote to the FBI and other officials asking why more wasn't done after the FBI's 2011 interview with Tamerlan Tsarnaev and the elder of the two brothers suspected in the Boston bombing, who was killed in the shootout with the U.S. police. The question is, why did they let him go? And by the way, there was another Saudi that was in question that was let go literally to go back to his country, where the questions have been raised. Why did this happen? Why was the Saudi government asking that this man be removed? He was in question, but that he would be returned to his country. Unanswered questions, folks. Let's go to Carl in Wisconsin. And Carl, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, hello, Vic.
Yes, sir.
This might seem like a small point, but I wonder how many people have noticed we fought in 2 world wars against countries that had standing armies. So far, the Muslim countries have never mounted any standing army or built any navy to come to our shores, and it may be that they are unable to do this. And I think that whatever Air Force they've developed was with Western help. I think that if they were to build a Navy, it would be with Western help. I think with any of their technology, it must be with Western help. I think their religion does not encourage education, to put it rather bluntly.
All right, sir.
That's my point. They have been hobbling us with cowardly terrorist tactics rather than making an open assault, such as an invasion.
Thank you so much, Carl. Appreciate your input there on that today. We're going to move along here also. You know, one of the things that bothers me is I watch the liberal, left-wing, left-leaning icons in the news business. Does the name Tom Brokaw ring any bells? Well, here, former NBC News anchor Tom Brokaw strongly suggested Sunday that America is partly to blame for the gruesome terrorist attacks in Boston, because the young Muslim men involved may have felt alienated and angry over the U.S. drone strikes on, quote, innocent civilians, unquote, in Muslim countries abroad. Brokaw, who has been playing the role of media elder statesman since retiring, went on NBC's Meet the Press with David Gregory to discuss last week's bombings, which killed 3 and injured 183. What do you think? Tom Brokaw, now the voice from the mountain. Let's go to Dorothy on line number 1. Dorothy, you're on the air.
Yes, screener, I was telling him about some people that was naturalized in England and had a couple of kids, and then when the kids grew up, they were terrorists. And the government over there in England took back the citizenship of the parents. And, of course, the kids was born in England, but they had them all shipped out, flew them over to their own country, and took away the citizenship, and even the kids were barred and everything. And then another thing was that the reason you can't get anything from the FBI, I tried to have the FBI kind of examine the birth of this president, and so they were all hot to trot, as you might say. And then after a while, I asked and called them back and asked them what happened, and they said, well, and I said, well, what is it? And they still denied. And then I said, they've got, I've heard they've got Muslim people in every branch of our government. And so I imagine that's what happened over there. They got one at the head of the FBI, and he said something like that.
Well, these are the things. The head of the CIA, of course, gave a very convincing speech on the merits of Islam, and I saw it on film, and it's out there. But, Dorothy, thanks so much for your call from Illinois. Brad in West Allis, Wisconsin. And, Brad, you're on the air.
Hi, Vic. To answer Carl's statement about standing armies, the Muslim terrorist countries do have their standing armies. They're called Islamic Jihad, Al-Qaeda, Hamas. That's all those are standing armies. They just hide and say, "Oh, they're not our armies," but they are.
And they wear no uniform.
Yeah, but our federal government is our own worst enemy here. Mm-hmm. They're proving it again. They're like the AIDS virus. They don't kill you, but they take away all your defenses so somebody else can kill you, like the Muslims. Okay, Islam is the disease, and federal government is the AIDS virus. But you remember at Osama Dakdak's presentation that a week ago or so, he also showed pictures of the men that Obama put in positions of power in the Department of Homeland Security and how they're interviewing Muslims on the proper way for us to interrogate Muslims. Is that nutbag or what?
Brad, thank you so much. You know, the situation there that you're referring to is that there were Islamic advisors that were advising the CIA or the Homeland Security and the FBI as to the proper way to interrogate them so you don't offend them. Rick in Navarre, Florida, you're on the air. Before we take your call, Rick, phone number, we got some open lines, 800-733-9829. Rick, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Vic. I'd just like to point out that the major reason that these incidents occurred with the Tsarnaevs was that when the immigration policy of the United States was reformed in the mid-'60s, they flipped the entire theory of immigration from the needs of the United States to diversifying the population, so that most of the immigrants now come overwhelmingly from the third world. So they tend to be uneducated and, most importantly for the liberals, un-Christian. And then to top it all off, when the immigration reform of '86 was passed, that introduced chain migration, where if any member of a family is in the United States legally and acquires citizenship or resident alien status, they can bring the whole family in from whatever country they came from. This is how the Tsarnaevs got all their people in. And now, as the icing on the cake, if you will, the immigration bill that's currently being considered in the U.S. Senate, 844 pages long, dropped in the dead of night at 2 a.m. last Wednesday on the clerk's desk in the Senate. We still don't know everything that's in it, but it expands and extends chain migration and all of the bad features of the current immigration system, the emphasis on third world diversity and all this other nonsense that's gotten us into the mess we're in now. I implore everyone who who loves liberty and wants to preserve this country to call their senators and oppose this current immigration bill, or as bad as it is now, it's going to get a whole lot worse.
And I want to say this, Rick, the phone number of the Capitol Switchboard is 202-224-3121 or 202-225-3121. That's the Capitol Switchboard. Ask to talk to your senators, your congressmen, and you don't know who they are, don't worry. Just tell the person at the switchboard who you are, where you live, and they will connect you with the right office. Even if you don't know their name, they will connect you with your senators and your congressmen as well. Thanks so much, Rick, from Navarre, Florida. We're going to move right along. Chris in Michigan. Chris, you're on the air. Hello, Chris.
Yes. I just wanted to call. If this young man has become a citizen, isn't his act a terrorist act against us? Not a terrorist, I mean a treasonous act?
Well, there are statements being made by many that said by his very actions, doesn't that mean he is literally denying or vilifying or destroying his citizenship? You know, that's the question. Mm-hmm. And if a person is, first of all, you make a vow that you support the Constitution, and then you come in here and act unconstitutionally, intentionally, I think it just makes the citizenship a joke.
Yes, and that's why I would think that we could take him to court on treason. I mean, he's gone against his nation.
There used to be a thing called Un-American Activities. That I think that the agency was shut down long ago. But when you see what else word would describe it better? The un-American activities of what's going on.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris. Yes. Appreciate that from Michigan. We're going to go to Jeff on line number 3. Jeff, you're on the air.
Well, this just makes me sad for this country. Where's the outrage? We just allowed our own standing army to put an entire city under lockdown, martial law, not a peep, not a protest, over one man, who, by the way, was caught by a private citizen after the martial law was lifted with his own. And then a private citizen calls in and does the police's work. Well, then there's videos of federal, state, and local police using intimidation, barking orders, marching us around, but nobody's saying anything about it. There's no outrage. America is gone. Well, what happened? That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your call. And taking your calls, 800-733-9829. Got 3 open lines, 800-733-9829. And Oscar in Idaho. We're going to go right there. Oscar, you're on the air. Oh, Oscar, we got a break right now. Hang on the line. We'll be right back in 1 minute. This is Crosstalk. Thanks for being with us today.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewweekend.com. We're continuing our series on a biblical worldview and money, 20 points. We're on point number 8 today. A wise man does not trust in riches. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17 speaks to this. Now, as we've explained, there's nothing wrong with money or having money. It's really neutral. It's not money that's the root of all evil. It's the love of money. And we don't place our trust in our money. We place our trust in the Lord Jesus Christ alone. Number 9, a wise man understands that real money is gold and silver, and God owns it all. Haggai 2, verse 8 speaks to this. A wise man understands that real money is something that has intrinsic value, not a fiat paper currency that can be inflated at the whim of the politicians and the central bankers. So a godly man or a wise man understands what is of real value, what's a real hard asset, and they have diversification. The Bible speaks to that as well. We'll continue on our next program.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where our lines are jammed right now, and we're going to hope to get all 4 lines in here and get your calls on the air. Oscar in Idaho, you've been so patient. Go right ahead. You're on the air.
I want to know why, because the Boston Massacre, that these 2 terrorists were like normal citizens and like just your average ordinary people, and then all of a sudden, well, just before every one person is about to cross the finish line, instant terror just suddenly happened all of a sudden, and then one of these 2 terrorists just got away with it, and I just couldn't believe my eyes, and it was very, very shocking.
Let me say this, Oscar, and you raise a point and use the term normal people. But may I say this, that the Bible says the heart of man is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And what you saw occur was wickedness and evil. And a heart that does not know the power of God and the love of Christ and forgiveness and cleansing is a heart that is fighting its own battle. It's angry inside. And they're carrying a weight of sin and sinful living. And yes, the Bible says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But as you find the terrorists where wickedness has taken over their lives, they're undercover. They're very subtle, kind of like the serpent or the snake. He's very, very subtle as he moves to find his prey. And what you find today is that you have people who give the appearance of normality, but their hearts are so corrupt that down inside they are destroyers.
Wow, that's more likely that they were so completely under the radar.
Yeah. Well, Oscar, your thoughts and your prayers for our country are important, but we need to stand up. And folks, if we're looking for leadership in our country, and we find in many cases only 20% of the people who could vote, and 80% of the people stay home, is it any wonder that the questionable leadership in our country is steering the ship? Oscar, thanks so much for your call. Got to move quickly to Oregon and Robert. And Robert, you're on the air. Go ahead. Robert?
Yes, I have one comment. Basically, what I'm trying to say is they took God out of schools in 1962. Therefore, we're suffering the consequences of that. Mm-hmm. And we are lost unless this nation repents individually. We have to tell everybody about Jesus.
That's
right. God puts power, God puts a nation together, and God takes a nation down.
That's
Obama
right.
came in because of our sin in the world. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's my opinion. But I believe that we need to repent individually and tell everybody about Jesus the best we can so that we can repent. But we're gone. We're gone. I agree with these other guys that are saying so. These people coming in, these Islam people, they're just God's way of saying, hey, wake up. And we're not waking up.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that from the state of Oregon. We're going to go back to Florida, and VM and Florida, you are on the air. Go ahead. Hello, Florida.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
This is VM. This
Yes.
is the first-time caller. I don't believe in another theory, It's not an inside job. But do you think that the government will always take advantage of these changes in order to do whatever they want to do worldwide or in the U.S.?
Let me just say this, VM. What we're talking about today, of course, is the aftermath of this bombing. And I think we're talking about our government standing up for what's right and leadership that is awake and vigilant and not deceived by falsity. And I think what we're seeing today are leaders that have their head in the clouds, have no idea what right and reality is. They are politically correct, and they're so busy trying to be politically correct that they're letting the whole nation go down the drain. And VM, I want to thank you so much for your call. Elmira, New York, and David, very quickly, you're on the air. Hello, David.
Yes.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I think that...
Please turn your radio down, okay?
Yeah, sure. Sure. I just want to make a comment, and then I'll
Sure.
Let you go. Listen, I think that the government that we have now is in pretty sad shape. You know, they let people into this country, and they're friends with that country. And in my opinion, I think that since Obama got in office, things have really, really gone bad. It's like putting a 5-year-old in an operating room and letting him be the brain surgeon.
Oh, my goodness. David, very interesting comment. We're so close to the end of the program. Thank you for getting in under the wires. We have Shirley in Milwaukee. Shirley, very quickly.
Hi, I just want to mention that when Obama was running for the presidency, I have the video of him talking about thanking John McCain for not mentioning his Muslim faith. And I have so many other videos of him talking about his Muslim faith. So people got to know he is a Muslim.
Thank you, Shirley. Appreciate your comments. Tomorrow we're going to have an interesting program, and it is going to be bringing back some of the shocking information regarding this abortionist who had kept for trophies in his filthy quarters, his office, jugs with detached, amputated little babies' feet, keeping them for trophies. A man who was accused of murdering living babies. But would you believe in a court today, a number of the charges against this man were pushed aside? Unbelievable. The man with all the evidence there, and that some of them were thrown out of court. We're going to talk about this tomorrow, and I hope that you'll be with us because this is vital stuff, and it's happening in our country. We need to pray for our country, pray for leaders that have a mind that is based upon righteousness and not the wickedness and compromise. Then we need to pray for our kids, pray for our leaders, pray for our church, and then stand firmly upon what God's Word says is right, not just what an opinion of compromise says to a world that is misguided. I want to thank you for joining us today. The program's called Crosstalk, and invite a friend to listen whenever you get a chance. And God bless you. Have a great day. This is Crosstalk on VCY America.
Listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.